Nowhere that we go is a one-way street. Nothing that we love is a one-day key. And if we gon' do it, we gon' do this now. And if we say we gon' hold this down.
What is up, everyone? My name is Will Holdren, and I am the host of the Willpower Podcast. Today, our special guest is John Hardy. And John is actually a God-first entrepreneur, which I absolutely love. He's a business consultant. He helps entrepreneurs build huge businesses. And not only that, but he also helps people live out their purpose, which is absolutely amazing. So, John, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thantics for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I'm super excited for it. And so I guess to start off, let's just jump right into your story. So kind of what is your background and how did you become an entrepreneur at the end of the day?
Oh, that's like pretty deep background. I mean,
Loaded.
It started off in 2008 when the housing market crashed. I had just got married and my wife was pregnant, and I was originally a carpenter, and I knew that was not going to be enough for me and my family. And things were slowing down. So I decided to get into sales. And now it doesn't matter if it was Canada or United States, it was a rocky economy, but I didn't know any better back then. Like, I'm quite young at that time. Like, I was 21.
Wow.
So I actually flew out to California to do door-to-door sales for a company as like a sole proprietor. So it's technically still my business.
Yeah. And
California was one of the hardest places hit in 2008 for the housing market. So it'd be like homeowner, and foreclosed home for the other three houses. So I got thrown into the fire when it came to starting off my entrepreneurship, to starting off in sales. And so that's really where everything kind of started.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that's a crazy transition because obviously 2008, like you said, was a tough economic time. So I know if anyone's going door to door to my house, I was probably not going to buy what they were selling, right? Because money was not an easy thing to come around at that point.
No.
Yeah. So how did that go for you, that first experience? Like you said, you're kind of thrown into the fire. I mean, were you successful at door-to-door sales at that time period? Or was that like a major crash and burn, but you led you down a good path kind of thing?
Yeah, I think here's the thing. It's kind of funny because I was second best in the first years of doing that because there's people who've been doing it longer than I have.
Wow.
But that didn't really mean too much because the first years weren't doing that great. So, but across the board, I wasn't doing too bad. Here's what happened. This is what happened. While everybody else was going out and having fun in California, going on their jet skis and so on and so forth, I was huddled in my room listening to Zig Ziglar, listening to Brian Tracy, re-listening to my own conversations. I was doing my best to be the best version of myself in sales so that I could provide for my family at that time. Now, to some degree, I'll kind of leave it here, but to some degree, I didn't have any interactions with the team, I feel like I should have a bit more.
Right.
But that type of dedication launched me into that, the next step of my entrepreneurship.
Gotcha. So I actually love what you said about kind of sitting in your room and listening to that self-development stuff, because I feel like I went through that same exact phase where it's just you got to develop that mentality. And once you have that mentality, then it's so much easier to make your business successful, make door-to-door sales more successful. You're expecting the no's, you're expecting some rejection, but until you have the mentality, then it's really hard to make anything work, especially just in entrepreneurship space in general, So I'm glad you brought that up. And sometimes some people I feel like I'm weird if I'm in the room by myself, listening to that entrepreneurship stuff, self-development, but that's the path you got to go down, right? You got to go over that yourself and really develop your mindset to get to that level you need to be. And yeah, it may look a little weird on the outside, but on the inside, you're developing. And that's a huge thing, even though it's not really visible right away, but it grows over time. And that to me is personal development. It's huge at early stages.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you decide to do after the door-to-door sales then, after that stint with them?
Yeah. So basically what happened was this. So the transition happened like this. They eventually moved me out of California and brought me back to Calgary because they knew that it was really hard. And at that point, when they moved me, I kind of already gave up inside. But I started making sales. And my wife was like, hey, just come home. So I decided I just left. Like I was like, I'm done, guys. And then I was like, well, I need a job. Like I need something to do. So I went into telecom.
Wow.
And back in the day in Canada, we had something called Wind Mobile. They're no longer around. A bigger company bought them out. They're called now. But I helped Wind Mobile build out like some of their stores. And by far, I was top sales across Canada, even though we were one of the last stores open.
Wow.
So like it went from like being not bad at sales to now I'm like, holy smokes, I can do this.
Yeah, that's impressive. And what was that transition piece for you? Like, what was that differentiating factor that made that so much more successful than before?
So I had an insane obsession with being a high performer, which I still do. I can't handle low performance. It just like I want to flip tables. Like I just like so when I went in there, I just wanted to be the best at what I was doing. And I got the attention of a lot of people that way, actually. And I stayed, I stayed in and out of the telecom industry for quite a few years. But in between that, I'd have people who would come to meet with me and ask me to build out their companies. So the first company I built was $2.69 million in 9 months. And it was a company called Canadian Property Stars. One of the partners there that I worked with is now he's the president of Grant Cardone Canada. His name is Corey Leaf. Wow. And so you can just see the caliber of people that kind of came out of there was like really, really high. And I absolutely loved that environment. And so like, that's what I just found myself wanting to do was just build more from there on.
And that's how you became a business consultant, which I love. So basically what you're saying is you really helped this company start out, grow out their franchise, open up different locations, and people came out in the woodworks basically after seeing what you've done, like, do the same thing for us. So
yeah, basically to a certain degree. Yeah. There was a little bit of there was some management challenges with the previous company that I was with at that time. And, so they're no longer around, but like, and that was one of the reasons why I was like, you know what? I'm going to venture out for more people were reaching out to me. So I was like, let me sit down, let me talk to them. Yeah. So that's kind of how that worked.
That's awesome. I also love how you said you're a high performer, you like to qualify yourself as that. And, I think there's so many things that go into just saying that, right? Because a lot of people want to be a high performer. What actually goes into being a high performer is so much different than just saying it on paper, right? So in your own words, like what are some of the high performance habits that actually make someone a high performer? Is it getting up at 4 a.m. every day, doing a gratitude journal, doing reading, cold plunges every day? Like what does that qualify for you to do that kind of stuff?
So I mean, that's a great question because I think a lot of people are going to have different definitions, but I'm going to put it this way. A high performer is extremely transparent and self-aware. I think those are two very like foundational pieces. And why I would say that is because a high performer knows when they're average.
Yeah.
They're not going to prop themselves up and say that they're good when they're not. And they're not going to make themselves look better than they are when they aren't. Why? Because they know where their place is. And then they work tirelessly and obsessively to be where they want to be. And that's what I would see a high performer. And if you take a look at a ton of people out there who do well and they're really good at what they do, they've sacrificed a lot. And some people have sacrificed their family, their health, relationships. But that's the high performance mentality, is to do that, is to sacrifice that. So being very aware of where you're at and what you're sacrificing is a skill that most high performers actually need to have.
Yeah, that's so good. And just to add on to that, there's not like a coach watching over you, right? This is you like one-on-one with you in the mirror. Like you got to be so good yourself, so self-aware. It's like you should know what you're doing wrong. And that's why I like, because you said that it's not specific things. And as a, I have to qualify myself as that in that category. It's like, like what you should be doing. And when you don't do it, you feel kind of regretful about that later on during the day. So it's not like you should be reading 20 pages a day, but maybe if you were a Christian and you should be praying every morning, something like that, right? So you should know like what falls into those categories of being a high performer for yourself and make that happen.
Yeah.
And And, I know it's kind of hard being, an entrepreneur myself. It's like when you don't do something certain day, you get kind of depressed and down on yourself. And then you're basically telling yourself you're losing confidence in your abilities. But that's why it's so important, like you said, to just be committed to it, make up these good high performance habits, and then that's going to build your self-confidence. And once you have that confidence, that's something you can translate to any area of your life. Like you said, that helps make you successful for sure at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it on the head, man. It's like when you're transparent. See, here's the thing: delusions, suffering happens when reality and your delusion collide. So the challenge is most people live this quiet life and they're internally suffering, but they look like they're having everything that's fine on the outside. Well, actually, if you resemble that, you're actually lying to yourself. You're living out a lie. Yeah. Because essentially you're just not letting the high performance version of yourself out due to whatever it may be. You may care about what people think about you. You may want to look better, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. So the high performer has come to the realization where they no longer care what anything else is going to happen. It's like, I'm going to focus on this. And a big part of that is God in my life, because you said there's no coach. Technically there's no coach, but there's my Father.
Yeah.
Right. And for sure, like, you can't lie. And that's just the moral code. And we have a conscience. So when you read the Bible, for example, it's going to be very clear, like, don't bear false witness. Well, don't be a liar.
Right. Exactly.
So if you really dive deep into that, you become transparent. It's just the natural progression of a high performer.
Yeah. Yeah. And the cool thing is everyone's capable of it, right? They just got to dive into it. But like you're talking about, most people never step out of that comfort zone and make that effort to actually reach that next level. Something I found is that maybe some people just don't want to. Some people are just completely complacent where they want to be, and that's fine. But a lot of us, like you're talking about, want to get to the next level, want to find what peak you really is, right? Because I think that's the great mystery of life, what everyone's trying to find out at the end of the day.
I have to because here's the thing. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because this is how, if we were to take a look at it, if you want to grow as a high performer, by definition, you are then pushing delusions to reality, which causes suffering.
Yeah.
So if you want to be comfortable, then you won't push the delusion to the reality to be able to see whether it works or not. You'll just believe the delusion and suffer inside instead of actually go through the pain of the realization and suffer on the outside or suffer externally.
Definitely.
And so one of them is reactive and one of them is active. And people are living that reactive life because they rather suffer internally and stay comfortable. So it's like, absolutely. And so here's the thing. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter almost what you believe. That's just a fact of reality. Like, if you don't want to get out of your comfort zone, it's because you don't want to suffer presently.
Yeah. No, exactly.
But you will suffer for the rest of your life.
Right. And so both of them are hard, right? So I think it's just choosing your hard. And, at the end of the day, I think it's much more rewarding if you choose your hard now and just develop yourself to where you really know you should be at. And it makes the rest of your life a lot more simple.
Absolutely.
You can be honest with yourself. So kind of like jumping back into your story. So you mentioned people started coming to you and you actually reached out to back to them, help them grow their business to the levels that they want to grow. Like you said, you grew one business 2.6 million in 9 months, which is really incredible. And it's not easy to do, as a lot of people would be doing that. So what are some common issues that you're finding when you go into these businesses to help develop them? And what are you really changing in those businesses to make them that successful in the levels they should be?
All right. So that's a pretty loaded question.
Yeah, it is a loaded.
So here's the thing. Everybody's going to have different challenges.
Oh.
But I am going to try and categorize it the best possible so that you can see where it is. Now, every company has 3 problems to fix, and it's going to be one of these 3. It's either going to be culture, which is the group mindset, and branding, which is an offshoot of culture. Okay? Or it's going to be systems and processes, which is the second thing, which breaks down to the right hats or the right positions in the company, the right processes, the right tools to be used, and the right goals. Okay. So if the systems are out of whack, right, they don't have a clear process, they don't have a clear goal for their process. What it really looks like is like everybody's going to the owner to ask the owner everything. So it's basically just a one-man show with multiple people.
Gotcha.
So no systems or processes in place. All right. I should take one step back for the culture part. When people are fighting against each other and the culture is down, there's very low performance. So maybe you have systems in place, but nobody's really performing. Right.
Okay.
So the last thing is going to be offer an avatar. So a lot of people are like, oh, I need help with my marketing. I need help with my sales. I need help with all these things that are not money, like they're not generating enough money. It's because they don't know their ideal client well enough to be able to build out an offer that matches them. So stats in the UK is 52% of businesses fail because the audience does not want their product or service. So they're delusional.
Wow.
They think that people need this thing that they're offering, but people don't, and they're trying to sell it. So they don't really know the needs and desires of their avatar or their ideal client. And their offer is totally way off. And therefore sales is out, marketing is not working very well, and so on and so forth. So those three things, every single company that has a problem is facing one of these three problems. I can narrow it down into one of those three.
Yeah. And I know it was a loaded question, so that was answered very well. So good job. So the one I want to dive into a little bit more is the whole culture perspective, because I love that one. Like you said, it's all about how your employees feel about your company, the kind of vibe your company gives out to the public, because that's how everyone's going to see you. That's how you're going to really get your customers at the end of the day. So from what you've seen, what is really a winning culture in a company? You know, what should they really strive for? What should they be looking for? And how should customers really be viewing a company?
Cool. So that's a great question. So one of the things that you want to focus on if you have a company with one or more employees is understand that your employee is more important than your customer. And this is actually like a contrary to a lot of the things that you hear out there. Why is the employee more important than the customer? Because if you take care of your employee, they will take care of the customer.
Yeah, I love that.
And so, but how do we make sure that the employee or the culture, whether it's employee, whether it's contractor, whatever, loves working with you? Here, you have to have this. This is a like almost a formula. Have clear boundaries and rules, and enforce them, even when there's conflict. Second, invite conflict into conversations. Actually, always address things that break the rules and try to understand it from an empathetic point of view, but you want to invite the conflict. And what that means is that you both may be like not agreeing about something, but at the end of the day, one of you is, if you're the owner, you're going to be like, listen, this is how we're going to do it. I get that you don't agree with it. I just want to make sure that you're on my team, and this is how we're going to do it. He's like, you know what? I may not agree with you, but yes, I will do it. And that's the way that we do it. It's like, that's why I love working with you, man. And this is how it works. And a lot of people think that will like degrade the conversation or degrade the contractor or the employee, but it doesn't. Actually, it raises the respect because now you're being a leader. And culture is all about how the leader wants to be perceived and how the company is to be perceived.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that definitely makes sense. Just like you're talking about, like it's so important to have those things written down, like the actual rules, because I feel like a lot of companies is kind of loose on what employees can actually do and not do. At least that kind of gets that division going within the company. Then employees are really not sure what they should be doing, what they should not be doing. So I think that's pretty much along the lines we just said, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll make one more point really quickly. So here's the thing. So like if you hire somebody, or maybe you've had a job, and the first day that you show up on time. Actually, you show up probably like 10 minutes early. You're dressed really well. You get straight to work, and you're like super focused. Yeah. You see, that's a culture thing. Now, if that falls off, that's actually because the culture that's built there has not yet been properly addressed. So in my company, we actually use yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, to your higher level. Like, so anytime I get one of my like contractors, anybody talk to me, like yes sir, when I tell them to do something. And that there puts in a level of respect, right? And when we have a chat, we never talk down to each other. We always talk to as if we're at each other's level, but we always leave with somebody's idea being implemented. So like, do you see how this works? It's like there's clear structure, clear hierarchy.
Yeah.
If something's not getting done, I want to know why.
Right.
So it's like, yeah.
No, that's good. I love the no man or no sir and yes sir. That's so like it's a respect thing, you know. It's just the power thing that you're talking about. Exactly. So I think a lot of people are kind of looking at your stories like, wow, this guy really just 21 years old, started out with sales, then he made a whole business for himself doing business consulting like right away. Everything's successful out of the gate. But you and I both know like entrepreneurship is such a hard road. There's so many ups and downs. So from what you've been through so far, what has been the hardest part of making, you know, everything just click for you? Because now everything looks like, wow, this is amazing. But before that point happened for you, like what was the hardest part of that?
The hardest part was probably, I wish everything was cool. Like you have, so I aspire to be the best at internal and external growth for entrepreneurs. Like that's like what I do. Why? Because I feel like there's a lot of that missing. There's a lot of like one-sided information everywhere. So I want to be the person that helps entrepreneurs with that. And why? Because I've been successful where I've made money. I've made tons of money for others as well. And I've been on the streets with my family because my mindset was not in the right place. Okay. I've literally been homeless with my kids. So that was the hardest thing ever.
Yes.
That's probably the hardest part.
No, for sure. And that, like you said, that's floor zero. And that's when you start to develop like that mindset and really started diving into some things. So that's a good point you brought up. So what really clicked for you at that point when you're, like you said, you're homeless with your kids and your wife? Like, what do you do from that point to recover from that?
So here's the thing, like, you know, I wish I could, because at that point I had already built a $2.69 million company. I had already like been really good at sales. And I really wish that it would have been as easy as being like, oh, look at all these things that I've done. I could go and do it again, but that wasn't the case. See, I kind of have to give you the understanding of where it was before I can go to the next part, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like my mindset was more like, what's wrong with me? Why did I let this happen to me? And all these questions that were like degrading questions, they weren't uplifting questions, but I continuously allowed them to mull in my head because I was trying to find answers. Challenge is the answer was actually inside me already. Like I already had the answers. One, I had to put God first. Like that was like number one. Second, it was that I have the ability to create the reality I want. And that's actually scriptural. Because if you take a look in the book of Genesis, God said to Adam and Eve, he said, go subdue the earth and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply. That word subdue means to bring under subjection. So he's saying everything on the earth is up to you to go and create it.
That's cool.
So I came to the realization that I created my own reality. That's when things started to click. I was like, oh, crap, I'm the one who put me on the streets. I was hanging around the wrong people. I was being hot-headed. Mindset was totally out of whack. I was not being transparent.
Yeah.
I was delusional about a bunch of things, right? It's like all these, you can have success, but you go right back to ground zero. So here's the thing. So I started to realize I need help. And here's the funny thing. The manager from 2008 lived in the same town that I ended up being in. And I went to go see him and I asked him for a $5,000 loan so that I can restart my business up.
Wow.
And he gave it to me. And that day forward, I was making anywhere from $3,000 to $1,000 every week.
That's impressive.
So I was like, I was back at it, right? Like I was like, here it is. And we moved. I was in a foreclosed, actually, we're on the streets, ended up in a foreclosed home because this lady let us into her home who was foreclosed. Jeez. And then I went to a 1-bedroom apartment, and then we went to a 3-bedroom house, which was nice, right? So like, and then from there and on, just started building out, and it was not easy, by the way. Like there's a lot that had to change, a lot.
Yeah. And that's a very inspirational story. And from what I'm getting so far, just from hearing from you from this, 20 some minutes already, is that right then, like your truth changed. Like you could have said that, you know what's wrong with me? I'm not good enough. This just isn't going to work out. But instead, like you said, you flip that switch in your mind. And that's how powerful your mind is. Like you said, God put us on this earth to create the reality that we want to create and to help the people. Right. And so by you switching that truth in your mind, like, wow, I can really do this, you're then changing your thoughts, which is great. That then changes your intentions, changes your actions. And that's so powerful because that means you can really do anything you set your mind to. And right there's just a perfect example of actually going out there and proving that,
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So here's the thing. Everybody has the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And back to almost the comfort thing, not everybody's willing to get uncomfortable to do it.
Right.
100%. So you don't have to end up on the streets like I did to change your mindset.
Right. That's actually key.
But it is uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the definition of you taking a risk, you know what I mean? Putting it all out there, trying to make it work though, do whatever it takes to try and succeed at the end of the day. And so you mentioned your boss loaned you that $5,000, the place you left a while ago back in 2008. So why do you think he did that?
He knew. That's a great question. If Gord ever listens to this, Gordo, shout out, buddy.
Yeah.
But you know what? We connected really well in 2008. I'm a Bible believing Christian, like just straight Bible. He was a Mormon.
Okay.
And so, like, it's different. But we had chats, and I talked to him a lot about God, and I think that gave us a groundwork to work off of, and we became friends, and I still talk to him till this day, actually.
That's cool. Cool. Yeah, and then, it's a thing of faith, and it worked out at the end of the day. He gave you the money, and then business started taking off again, after some self-development, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, even though we had different beliefs, because it still ended up building a relationship because we were able to talk to each other and conversate.
Right. Yeah, it's powerful. So as we come to the end of this podcast, so the mission of the whole podcast, this one anyway, is to really help young Christian entrepreneurs kind of find their way out into the entrepreneurial community and really find their way and really, develop some success in this space early on. So in your opinion, if I'm a young entrepreneur, really want to get into the game somehow, what is the number one thing you'd recommend for me to start doing instantly that can, really get my name out there and start things on my own?
Can I mention two?
Yeah, go ahead. As many as you want. Yeah.
First things first, fast and pray.
Yeah.
Okay, look, if you've never fasted before, seriously, just check into it. Bible says, Jesus didn't say if you fast, he said when you fast. So fast and pray about what you're going to go do. Because seriously, God actually has something for you. Okay. Second, when you're really clear, or whether you're not super clear, you just have a little inkling, you have kind of a thread of where you're going, find everything that you can, spend some time, some research on your ideal client's current situation, desired situation, and the needs and desires that they have, the desires that they have, and build a bridge between the two. That's where value is built. When people don't know how to get from point A to point B, and you figure out how to get from point A to point B for them, is where value is built. 100%. So those are the two things I would say to do.
Yeah. All good stuff. And then on top of that, just from my experience so far, like the podcast and stuff, like I would say finding a mentor too is extremely important. Like you said, especially once you find your niche you want to go into, and finding that bridge between the needs and the wants and how they should get there. Finding a mentor that's already done it, so you don't have to recreate the wheel, is a huge thing. So from your experience so far, like how can someone that doesn't have a ton of connections out of the gate find a mentor to help them out that really wants to care about them and take them to the next level?
That's such a good question. So like starting to find people that are like-minded is a good place, but you do want to have some way of networking and finding people. Now here's the thing. A lot of people are afraid to spend money on buying courses or whatever it may be. Don't be afraid. Like education's a really big piece of this, and the more education that you get, the better. I spend a lot on education every single year. And one of the things that it's done for me is really got me to be connected with a lot of cool people. Right. So I would say do not be afraid to spend money on your education.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And like you said, it's about the content, like self-development and spending the money on that. But more importantly, it's the circle that it puts you in. Yeah. Like when you spend that money, again, that networking group, you meet people that you have never met before. It opens up doors that would have not been open before. So
absolutely.
It's a huge piece. So I guess my last question for you is, looking at your life so far, you've already done so much, come so far. So what are some of your goals that you hope to get accomplished in the next couple of years going forward for you and your business personally?
Here's the thing. I just have to make a statement here because of what you just said there. Funny thing about success is it's just like food. There's no meal so great and so grand and so good that you don't have to eat again.
Good point.
Right? So my next part here is that I really want to be the best in the world at helping people grow their service-based business. I'm most likely looking at helping more coaches and consultants. I can do brick and mortar and stuff too, but more like coaches and consultants who want to change the world. But not just from an exterior point where they're doing marketing and sales, but also from an interior point where they can be extremely transparent and be extremely self-sufficient in that sense and have a very clear goal for themselves. So this is that's my next big thing. I think that's the next thing I'll be doing for the rest of my life. Yeah. God willing. And monetary wise, I would like to have my office in a place called Metro Tower. Right, I have some goals. I would like another supercar, right. and just to have I've got 5 kids. You might be able to.
Congrats! I just heard one of them.
and we would like to move to a place that's a little bit more sunny on the coast. So that's kind of the next things that I have on the list.
Gotcha. So is that staying in Canada up north?
I have a hard I like everywhere else. But I'm going to probably stay in Canada.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, all makes sense. But yeah, well, I really enjoyed our conversation today. And before we hop off, is there anything else you'd like to say to our audience today?
No, not really. I mean, I guess I can just let you guys know where to find me. The best place to find me is on Instagram at JLewisHardy. That's JLOUISHARDY. You can find me there. I actually have a free book where I explain a little bit of my story, which you've heard today. And I go through some of the principles that have really helped me through to get success. And it's totally free. There's a digital version. If you want it, you can go right ahead, DM me, just DM gift, and I'll send that over to you.
That's awesome, guys. Definitely take advantage of that. All right, guys, there you have it. John Hardy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Awesome.
Yeah, my life is questions and assumptions and guesses, all bottled in just one lesson, labeled in Sharpie, God's blessing. Yeah. Nowhere that we go is a one-way street. Nothing that we love is a one-day key. And if we gon' do it, we gon' do this now. And if we say we